Welcome to World Class, a podcast where voices from across the world come together to explore theology with a focus on contextual theology. In every episode, you'll hear inspiring stories, profound insights, and fresh perspectives that reflect the rich diversity of our world. This podcast is about listening, learning, and living tuned into diverse voices, gaining wisdom and applying it to our lives. Together, we'll navigate the intersections of faith, culture, and lived experiences to deepen our understanding of how theology shapes and is shaped by the context we live in. And now, here is your host, Rodney Ragwan.
Today we delve into the remarkable story of John Rangiah, a figure often overlooked in the annals of missionary history, yet one whose impact resonates profoundly. Rangiah's journey from Nellore, India, to the shores of Natal, South Africa, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries is a testament to the transformative power of the gospel and the pioneering spirit of intercultural mission. To truly appreciate the context of John Rangiah's extraordinary journey, we need to step back in time. In the year 1835, driven by a fervent desire to share their faith, the American Baptist Foreign Missionary Society dispatched Dr. and Mrs. Samuel S. Day to the east. 2 years later, their efforts led to the establishment of the Madras Baptist Church, a small congregation with Dr. Day serving as its first pastor. Now it's crucial to understand that this wasn't a pioneering endeavor in the purest sense. As India's first Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru astutely noted, I quote, "The history of the Christian church in India is as old as Christianity itself," unquote. Tradition holds that the Apostle Thomas himself brought the gospel to India as early as 50 AD, finding success even among the highest caste Brahmins. This historical context raises a pertinent question. If the Apostle Thomas could connect with the highest echelons of Indian society centuries prior, why were subsequent missionary efforts seemingly struggling to gain traction among the lower social strata, particularly the Telugu-speaking people? The reality, as the early American missionaries soon discovered, was that reaching the Telugu communities was an immensely challenging undertaking. The social hierarchies, the linguistic barriers, and deep entrenched cultural norms presented significant obstacles. The American Baptist Foreign Missionary Society, undeterred, sent further reinforcements. Dr. and Mrs. Lyman Jewett arrived in India, dedicating themselves to learning the complex Telugu language in Nellore near Madras. Within 9 months, Dr. Jewett preached his first sermon in the local tongue, and Mrs. Jewett achieved a comfortable level of fluency. Yet despite their dedication, widespread success remained elusive. The Missionary Society itself began to express concerns. The resources being poured into the Indian missions simply weren't yielding the results they had hoped for. The frustration culminated in a pivotal evaluation meeting held in New York in 1853. Imagine a wall map in that room, dotted with stars representing successful mission fields, while regions like Burma, boasted multiple stars, India was represented by a solitary, lonely point of light. Critics, some of whom had never even set foot on the subcontinent, voiced strong opinions, even advocating for the complete cessation of the Indian mission. The final decision was slated for the following day. That night, one delegate, Dr. S. F. Smith, found himself deeply troubled. The image of that single star on the map weighed heavily on his heart. In his unease, he penned a poem, a heartfelt plea for perseverance. Each of the 6 stanzas began with the poignant words, "Shine on, lone star." The committee was moved and decided not to close the ministry among the Telugus. It was within this complex and often challenging missionary landscape in India that our remarkable figure, John Rangiah, was born in Nellore. His early life and the faith he inherited were deeply intertwined with the efforts of these early American Baptist missionaries, including Dr. and Mrs. Lyman Jewett. It is particularly noteworthy that Mrs. Lyman Jewett from the American Baptist Foreign Missionary Society took the time and effort to document the work of Reverend John Rangiah. Her efforts in preserving his history have become invaluable in understanding his significance and rectifying the historical record. Every so often, history presents us with figures who challenge norms, defy expectations, and open new frontiers for the gospel. John Rangiah was one such individual. Born in Nellore, India, he responded to God's call to serve in South Africa at a time when mission was largely a one-way movement from the West to the rest of the world. His journey from India to Africa, and most specifically to South Africa, was not just geographical, but symbolic of the shifting tides in global Christianity, a movement where mission no longer flowed from Europe and North America alone, but also from places like Asia and Africa. Rangiah's story continues in Nellore, India, within the context we've just explored. His father, his father's encounter with these early American Baptist missionaries planted the initial seeds of faith that would eventually blossom in John's heart. It's vital to remember the historical backdrop here, a time shaped by colonialism, intense cultural exchange, and a rapidly expanding global missionary movement, often facing significant hurdles in effectively connecting with local populations. One of the defining characteristics of Rangiah's life was his deep and unwavering commitment to prayer. For him, prayer wasn't a mere formality. It was the very foundation upon which he made life-altering decisions. When he felt God's call to serve in South Africa, a truly daunting prospect for a brown-skinned Indian man in that era, his first response was to turn to prayer. Even his wife's initial hesitation about this significant move was overcome through fervent prayer, underscoring the central role of faith in their shared ministry and the profound impact of spiritual discernment on their path. Rangiah's arrival in Natal, now called KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, in 1903 marked a pivotal moment. There he established the Indian Baptist Church, which stands today as a vital part of the Baptist Association of South Africa. This act alone was a radical departure from the deeply entrenched racial segregation of the time. South Africa was a society sharply divided along racial lines. Yet, Rangiah courageously carved out a spiritual home for the Indian community, ministering to them in their own language, embracing their unique customs, and showing deep respect for their traditions. His culturally sensitive approach is a remarkable early example of contextualization, a principle that remains absolutely fundamental in effective missiology today. And so on 13 June 1903, Reverend John Rangiah, wife Kankama, and son Manoharam, and daughter Premilela landed on African soil. His son was 6 years old and daughter 4 at that time. John Rangiah was offered a home and work by the South African General Mission, SAGM. In a single-room home in Phoenix near Durban, a son was born. The missionary was the midwife. Whilst grateful to the SAGM and Tomlinson, who became a firm friend of the Indian Baptist cause for the next 60 years, Rangiah knew that he had forsaken the comfort zone of his homeland to serve Indian Baptists and not the white community of another denomination, for practical reasons. A few months later, his travel took him to Kearsley. The joy of a gentleman called Benjamin and others was indescribable. They knelt and prayed with much emotion. Hewlett, the landlord, was impressed by the missionary and invited him to return with his family. He offered the missionary family a 10-room bungalow set in an orchard of 10 acres. It had been the residence of a white manager. Rangiah named the property Gospel Hill. Appropriately, as for many years to come, it sent the light of the gospel out to many. The landlord Hewlett, the owner of the sugar estate, provided a regular provision and a stipend. The company and the home, in turn, provided shelter and care for the next 3 generations of missionaries. John Rangiah established the first Telugu Baptist church at a place called Kearsley on December 27, 1903, with 64 members. It was the first church of its kind in Africa, indeed in the southern hemisphere. The missionary and his helpers traveled to the outlying districts, locating Baptists and preaching to their families and friends. He carefully selected leaders and trained them as pastors. He then established churches. He traveled long distances on foot, by bicycle, and train. At times, slept on the roadside. And along the way, he planted 8 churches. Here we see Rangiah's missiological wisdom in action. He navigated a complex social landscape, a context where white and black cultures dominated. Yet he focused on the Indian diaspora, recognizing their unique needs and challenges. He understood that effective ministry required cultural relevance, a principle that remains crucial for missionaries today. His ecumenical spirit further distinguished him. In 1910, he traveled to Edinburgh, Scotland, to attend the World Missionary Conference. This event, as documented by Brian Stanley, a British scholar, was a pivotal moment in the history of global mission. Rangiah's participation underscores his commitment to the broader Christian community and his desire to engage with the global missionary movement. His presence at such a significant gathering speaks volume about his vision and influence. Now, sadly, in 1914, the organization he founded experienced a schism. Yet, even in this adversity, Rangiah's leadership prevailed. The majority of the congregation remained with the Baptist Association of South Africa. The other group, the Baptist Mission of South Africa, demonstrates the complexity of church history. Importantly, both organizations have maintained good relationships, a testament to the enduring impact of Rangiah's legacy. Rangiah was an unmistakably holy man. He successfully removed the caste system from his churches. He did not tolerate cultural and language barriers. His four Telugu-speaking daughters married Tamil stroke Malayalam men, while some critics may have unfairly attempted to accuse him of promoting the caste system within his ministry. His actions and the very fabric of his life stand as a powerful testament to his unwavering opposition to such divisions and his commitment to unity in Christ that transcended cultural and linguistic boundaries. Rangiah's death in 1915 did not mark the end of his influence. His legacy lives on through the churches and numerous fellowships that grew across KwaZulu-Natal. His life was rooted in prayer. It was the missional power for him, the missional power of spiritual discernment. John Rangiah's journey did not begin with a strategic plan, a fundraising campaign, or a theological degree. It began with prayer. His father, influenced by American Baptist missionaries, passed on a deep spiritual heritage to his son. When Rangiah sensed a call to serve in South Africa, he didn't immediately act, he prayed. He understood that true mission must be birthed in spiritual discernment, not human ambition. But he wasn't the only one praying. His wife, initially hesitant about this radical move, eventually found peace through prayer. This moment in his life highlights a key missiological principle. Calling is not just individual but communal. A missionary journey affects their family, their home, and their sending community. Even today, missionaries struggle with this reality. How do you discern a calling that takes you far from home? How do you bring loved ones along in that journey? Rangiah's story reminds us that prayer is not just a personal discipline, but a way of aligning hearts with God's mission, both for the missionary and for those around them. Rangiah's story reminds us that missiology is not merely an academic pursuit. It's a lived experience. It's about crossing cultural boundaries, embracing diversity, and embodying the love of Christ in tangible ways. His life serves as a powerful reminder of the transformative power of intercultural mission and the enduring legacy of those who dare to step out in faith. His life was a story of faith, sacrifice, and visionary leadership, deeply rooted in prayer and shaped by an understanding of mission that was contextual, strategic, and ecumenical. Today, his legacy continues through the churches he planted, the leaders he trained, and the theological framework he modeled, one that remains relevant in a world where migration, cultural diversity, and post-colonial dynamics shape the church's witness. As we explore his life and contributions, I invite you to reflect on what his story teaches us today. What does his mission journey say about the nature of God's call? What lessons can contemporary mission practitioners learn from his ministry? And how does his legacy challenge us to think differently about where mission is happening and who is leading it? Reflecting on his life and mission, I found some very significant developments. Crossing boundaries, mission from the margins. In the late 1900s and 19th and early 20th centuries, the dominant narrative of mission was from the West to the rest. European and North American missionaries were the primary agents of mission, and we bless and we thank God for them and the significant impact they've made. But non-Western Christians were largely seen as recipients. But John Rangiah's story challenges that colonial paradigm. His journey from India to South Africa was almost unheard of at that time. The idea of a brown-skinned Indian missionary serving in Africa was radical. His story foreshadowed the rise of non-Western mission leaders, a movement that continues today. Today, the fastest growing missionary movements are not from the West, not coming from the West, but from places like South Korea, Brazil, Nigeria, India, and the Philippines. Today, as Christianity continues to expand across diverse cultures, the question remains, are we forcing people into foreign church structures, or are we allowing the gospel to flourish in their unique cultural expressions? Are we training local leaders or maintaining dependency on outsiders? Rangia's work challenges us to rethink how we do missions in a multicultural world. Rangiah was an early embodiment of missions from the margins, a concept that recognizes that those who were once mission fields are now leading the way in global evangelism. His story invites us to ask, where are we seeing new centers of mission influence today? Are we still operating with a colonial mindset about who gets to lead mission? How can we support and empower mission leaders from non-Western backgrounds? Rangia's life teaches us that mission is not about geography, but about obedience. The call of God is not limited by ethnicity, nationality, or history. It is for all who are willing to go. Then the area of contextualization, making the gospel culturally relevant. When Rangiah arrived in South Africa, he entered a complex racial and cultural landscape. The country was largely divided between black and white communities, but his primary focus was the Indian population, many of whom had been brought as indentured laborers to work on plantations. Instead of imposing a foreign model of Christianity, Rangiah understood that the gospel must speak the language of the people. He embraced contextualization, a missiological principle that states that the gospel must be presented in a way that makes sense within the culture, language, and worship style. He preached in the language of the Indian community rather than forcing English or Afrikaans on them. Cultural traditions, he incorporated elements of Indian heritage into church life rather than expecting people to abandon their identity. Training indigenous leaders, instead of keeping power centralized, he trained lay leaders to continue the mission. This approach ensured that Christianity was not seen as a Western import, but as something that belonged to the people. It's a powerful reminder that effective mission work is not about transplanting foreign expressions of faith, but about allowing the gospel to take root in local soil. And the ecumenical vision, unity in the body of Christ. John Rangiah was not just forced on his own, was not just focused, I beg your pardon, on his own denomination or mission field. He recognized the importance of collaborating uh, with the global community. His attendance at the 1910 World Missionary Conference, as um, mentioned earlier on in Edinburgh, was significant. This was one of the first major gatherings to discuss cooperation between Christian traditions in mission work. Though it was still dominated by Western voices, Rangiah's presence signaled the growing role of non-Western Christian leaders in shaping mission discussion. This raises important questions for today. Are we still working in denominational silos, or are we willing to collaborate across traditions? How can churches work together across cultural and theological differences for the sake of the gospel? Rangiah's vision was not about division but unity, a lesson the global church still needs today. The challenge of division, the 1914 schism. No great movement is without challenges. In 1914, as mentioned earlier on, the organization Rangiah founded split into two groups: the Baptist Association of South Africa, which remained under his leadership, and the Baptist Mission of South Africa. While painful, this division did not destroy the mission. Instead, both groups, as mentioned earlier on, continued to spread the gospel, and today they maintain good relationships. This reminds us that mission work is not free from conflict, but faithful leadership ensures that the work of God continues despite human struggle. As we reflect on John Rangiah's remarkable journey from India to South Africa, it's particularly noteworthy to consider the perspective of Mrs. Lyman Jewett, the wife of Reverend Lyman Jewett, an American Baptist foreign missionary who served in India during the 19th century. Her presence and work in Nellore directly preceded and, in a sense, laid some of the groundwork for the very community that would eventually send John Rangiah. Mrs. Jewett, like many missionary wives of her era, played a vital role in supporting the spread of the gospel through education, healthcare, and spiritual mentorship, particularly among women and children in the Telugu-speaking region. Her dedication to learning the local language and engaging with the culture highlights the very challenges that Rangiah himself would later navigate in a new context. Now, what makes Mrs. Jewett's potential understanding of John Rangiah's background so significant is the historical context of missionary work at that time. In an era where Western narratives often dominated and the agency of indigenous leaders was frequently minimized, any recognition and documentation of individuals like Rangiah by missionaries like Mrs. Jewett becomes a powerful testament to their character and foresight. It suggests an appreciation for the local church and its potential for leadership that wasn't always universally embraced. Now, while we don't have direct writings from Mrs. Jewett about Rangiah specifically, her dedicated service in the very region that produced him underscores the interconnectedness of the early missionary efforts and the emergence of impactful leaders from those communities. A legacy that endures. John Rangiah's legacy is not just history, it's a model for mission today. His life teaches us mission must be birthed in prayer. God calls people from unexpected places. The gospel must be culturally relevant. Mission is best done in unity, not division. True mission empowers local leaders. His story is a call to action, a challenge to think differently about mission in the 21st century. As you reflect on his life, ask yourself, where is God calling me to go? And how can I support those who are being sent today? Thank you for listening.